Never, never, never die. 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 Never die.
Fuck you.
All right. It is Friday. It is 9 a.m. And before I get into today's podcast, I want to thank Blackstone Labs for sponsoring me, sponsoring this podcast. And you can get 20% off your entire order at blackstonelabs.com. That is 20% off your entire order, blackstonelabs.com. Proteins, branched-chain amino acids, pre-workouts, thermogenics, whatever you need, whatever you want, Blackstone Labs can help you. Just 20% off your entire order. Be the 4-pound check. Get hooked the fuck up. Thrive. Body Transformation by Jon Andersen. I'm going through the process right now. I went from 325 pounds to 300 pounds today. That is 1 month, huge transformation. Look, no cardio, never hungry, change your physique, change your body. At 39 years old, I am developing what I wanted. This is the physique I want to get. And guess what? I'm getting it through Jon Andersen as IFBB Pro Jon Andersen's Deep Water Motivation, Body Transformation, Thrive program. Link in the notes, mention Angry Dad, and he'll take care of you. SleepTerrorClothing.com. Sleep Terror Clothing is a dark occult brand. Look, hats, art print, shirts, and beard oil. For those who watch, those who see, I have a beautiful beard, and that beautiful beard is maintained by Leviathan Cross. Leviathan Cross is a beard oil that they personally make themselves with a beautiful bottle, never spills, never drips, just the right amount comes out. Get yourself hooked the fuck up at sleepterrorclothing.com. CH Concrete, serving the San Francisco Bay Area. That is CH Concrete, serving the San Francisco Bay Area. No job too big, no job too small, residential, commercial, does not matter. CH Concrete can help you. And just recently acquired is Feast Mode Seasonings, Feast Mode Flavorings. Look, I barbecue, I cook, I eat tons of meat, and I flavor that meat with Feast Mode. Asiago jalapeno is my favorite. That is the one to use. If you want to try something, you want to start, there's the point, and you get 10% off your entire order at feastmode.com. Just enter Ben10 in the code box, and they'll take care of you. And CBD, I am a big proponent of CBD. CBD is something I use. CBD is something that is very important and near dear to my heart because you know what? I wake up stiff. I wake up with my back hurting. I used to wake up feeling horrible, not rested. But you know what? I use CBD right before I go to sleep. I put it right under my tongue. It's an oil. It tastes like peppermint. It's delicious. And you know what? I wake up rested, relaxed, and recovered with CBD. And you don't have to use oil. They have gummies. They have candy. They have pills you can take. And you know what? It works just as great. But I like the oil. It's the easiest to take. A couple of drops before I go to sleep, and I'm ready to go. And you get 20% off your entire order at hempbombs.com. Use the link in the notes. Those links help me out. And guess what? I'll help you out with those products. And before all that's all said and done, let's get into today's podcast. I have Timon Singh with me. This man is an author. He was also in a movie I just recently watched. The movie is In Search of the Last Action Hero. He wrote 2 books, Born to Be Bad 1, Born to Be Bad, and Born to Be Bad 2. And these are super villain books. These are based on villain. These are based on the anti, not a hero, on the opposite spectrum of the book. And you know what, though? That is something I'm very interested in because I'm heavily into comics. I've read comic books. I've read villains are so important in this thing. And you know what? That's why I'm happy I have him on.
Thanks for having me on, Benjamin. It's yeah, I'm really excited to be here.
Oh, thank you. Thank you. You know, let's dive into the book. You know what I'm saying? Break it down for those, you know, just a quick synopsis just to explain what's going on.
Sure. Well, like you said, you grew up with comics, and in comics, your hero is really only as good as your villain. And it's the same in the movies. I grew up watching, you know, all the great action films of the 70s, 80s, 90s, your Bruce Lee films, your Arnie films, your Stallone films. And between you and me, Stallone and Arnie are great, but they're only great if you have a great villain opposite them. And we've all read interviews with Arnie and Stallone and Bruce Willis over the years. We know what they're like. But one day, I just thought there's never been a book talking to the actors that played all the bad guys in these films. And there's such a wide range of bad guys. You've got the big muscular bodybuilder types that, you know, the types that were working out with Arnie and Stallone in Gold's Gym at the time. You've got stuntmen and martial artists. And then you've also got the, you know, British stage thespians who are in films like Raiders of the Lost Ark or people like Alan Rickman. So a few years ago, I decided to track down all the actors behind the most memorable bad guys of all time. And that's people like Vernon Wells in Mad Max 2 and Commando. That's like the most of the terrorists in Die Hard. It's like Al Leon, who played every Asian henchman, everything from Lethal Weapon to Big Trouble in Little China. It's Sven Ole Olsen, who used to work out with Arnie and is in pretty much every Arnie film, from Conan the Barbarian to probably, I'm going to say, Eraser. He might still be, he's in other ones. And the book did really well. And I wrote a follow-up where I interviewed more people, and there was people I couldn't get last time. So in the new one, I've got people like Robert Patrick, who played the T-1000. I've got Stephen Lang, who was Colonel Quaritch in Avatar. I've got Scott Adkins, who is in countless martial arts films, most recently in Ip Man 4, and he's just out in Berlin right now, appearing in John Wick 4. So, you know, whether you're into martial arts films, big explosive action films, and you always thought the bad guy was the best part of that film, my books was me tracking down the actors who played those roles and just talking about their experiences, what it was like to make those films, what it was like working with the biggest stars in the world at that time, and what happens when the credits roll and the hero goes off into the sunset and they've been thrown off a building or blown into pieces.
You know, it's one of the greatest things is, like I said, I grew up early 80s and right into the 90s of all of these action movies, just like you said, Seagal, Dolph Lundgren, you know, and Arnold Schwarzenegger. And the thing is just like you said, the villain, the bad guy has to carry the hero, because you know what, the bad guy has to be so sinister and so methodical about what he does that he makes this huge bodybuilder, this strong person, this strong personality seem weak, weaker than him. And that's one of those things that, you know, you just fall in love with the things. I've always, like I said, action heroes always been my number one. But the thing is if I can't hate this guy with all the passion in the world while I'm watching this movie, then this movie is not going to do well, because that bad guy, that villain has to like literally jump out of the screen, be more charismatic. And the thing is too, is a lot of these villains aren't the same shape as the hero. And that's the part that's so hard, because you have this huge muscular man, you have this dude that's bigger than life. Everybody knows he's a badass because they're going into this movie to see it. But then you have this small man who's smart, charismatic, and is pinpoint precision. Like, I know exactly what you're going to do. I know exactly what I'm going to do. And they lay it all out. So it just seems like they have this daunting task to defeat this person. You know what I'm saying? It's one of those things I love about these movies back in the day, because a lot of times people never, you know, they always put them off like, oh no, it's just an action movie. It's just like, no, there's an architectural storytelling here that's going to portray something that is just so stupendous. And it's like, it's such a fine line, because there's not a lot of great action movies, you know what I'm saying, that are still, are even being made now, because they don't have people that can portray those things.
Yeah, one of the great actors who is exactly like you described that I interviewed for the first book is Ronnie Cox. So Ronnie Cox played Dick Jones in RoboCop, and also Cohagen in Total Recall.
Yep.
And in both those films, he is like American capitalism gone 500%. You know, he is the worst excesses of capitalism and America in the 80s, to the point where he's charging people for air on Mars. And you know that, you know, in a hand-to-hand fight, he's not going to beat RoboCop or Arnie, but he's the guy that he's so rich, he's got minions doing all this for him. And in person, Ronnie Cox is the complete opposite of those characters. He is a family man. These days, he's retired from acting. He just tours with his son, and he's really into country music. I went to his house when I worked on the documentary In Search of the Last Action Heroes. And, you know, he's just chilled out, talking with his family. He was just talking about, hey, remember that time I was in Star Trek The Next Generation? Some guys just sent me a comic. He's the loveliest guy ever. And then you look at him in something like Total Recall, where he's a full-on complete bastard. And you're like, he's fantastic.
You know, it's just one of those things, like I said, Total Recall and Arnold Schwarzenegger, those are, when you say that name, that's exactly who I think of. And it's even funny too, because like I believe he did RoboCop before he did Total Recall. And I remember they were like, look, all I want is you to be Dick Jones in this movie. And the transfer was perfect, because just like you said, it's like he's not a formidable. Even then, he was younger, but he still looked like a little older. He looked like a CEO type. And just the way he would lay the plan out or call people idiots and fucking just like break those down is like, people don't appreciate that shit, because if you don't have that focus there, then what the hero is doing is completely just not relevant.
And he credits Paul Verhoeven, who directed RoboCop and Total Recall, with completely transforming his career, because he told me after Deliverance, not many people would hire him in those kind of roles because he plays like the sensitive banjo playing member of the group. And after that, he was in films like Taps and Beverly Hills Cop, but he's always playing kind of upstanding military types, you know, police lieutenants, and he's played the president of the United States a few times. But Paul Verhoeven recognized something in him where it's like, you look like a president of the United States, therefore you're perfect to play a full-on corporate bastard. Because, and even Ronnie Cox says this, he says that several of his friends, when he was playing these roles, it's like seeing an Apollo astronaut just go completely batshit insane. You know, that personification of an all-American look, just being a dick.
Yep. If you had to put a number one on a villain in a movie from the time that I'm talking about from beginning to end action movies that you love, who would be the one that you would be like, all right, I hold this person above them all?
I mean, unfortunately, he passed in like 2015, but Alan Rickman in Die Hard.
Yeah.
He's so charming, he's so likable, and he steals the film right out from under Bruce Willis. You know, Bruce Willis is great, but the reason they put in more scenes with Alan Rickman was he was doing moonlighting at the same time. So there were times when he, you know, literally needed sleep. So like, well, let's put more Alan Rickman in this thing. And he's one of those bad guys where you're like, I kind of hope he gets away with it. I mean, sure, he's just a bank robber. Granted, he shot, you know, Mr. Takagi in the face, and he's going to blow up everyone to kind of fake his own death so he gets away with it. But you're kind of like, he's so calm, he's so measured, he just looks great in a suit, he's got the muscle surrounding him, so he doesn't really need to do anything. And like, each time you watch it, like, part of you, you know, a good 50% is thinking, maybe he gets away with it this time. Maybe Bruce Willis will cock up and fall down a lift shaft. But yeah, I think Alan Rickman is that perfect, like you said, a bad guy that's only as good as your hero. That's
it. I mean, right now, and like I said, that movie right there, I remember going to the theaters to see it. And, you know, I used to go to a drive-in. I had the pleasure, my mom worked at a drive-in. So on the weekends, you know, instead of hiring a babysitter at night, we'd watch a double feature and then go home. And I've seen so many movies there. And it's one of the reasons I have such a love for action movies. And Die Hard right there is, you know, this is going to be me saying it's a big controversy, everyone, but it is a Christmas movie, period. It takes place in Christmas. There's a Christmas party in it. So it is a Christmas. But him right there, when he was in that role, and then all of a sudden him and Bruce Willis tied together, and he's all, no, I'm Clay. I'm Clay. And then he fucking completely dropped the accent, had him fucking fooled. But Bruce Willis was like, something's still off. He had that cop assumption, which he was right, but at the same time, he really played the role, watched the things, and just those little interactional scenes where he's like, he ain't got no shoes on. He's only got a couple of bullets. He's only got all the, you know what I'm saying? Like, what the, and then like, just to be able, you could see him literally deliberately dissecting what's going on before he tried to shoot him.
And the amazing thing was that was Alan Rickman's first film role. He was just a British stage actor. Yeah. And talking to, in my book, I talked to a lot of the actors that played, you know, his band of terrorists. And they're like, he was just, you know, remarkably chill. He didn't like firing guns because he was kind of not used to doing that, being British. So in certain scenes, you can see him like blinking uncontrollably whenever pulling the trigger, because he's like, you know, I've never done this before and it's really fucking loud. And, you know, Alexander Godunov, who plays Carl, he's also passed. But I spoke to Andreas Winewski, who plays Tony, his brother. And he's also a henchman in the Bond film, The Living Daylights. But he said that Alan Rickman and Alexander Godunov, they would just sit around hanging out with everyone. Everyone would play chess. And, you know, they were a little, terrorist band of brothers that just hang out on set because they were there for months doing that film.
Yeah, no, that was a great film. I'm going to give you mine. I'm going to tell you who I hold above all, and I hold James Earl Jones from Conan the Barbarian. Conan the Barbarian.
Strength, boy. That's his power. The power of flesh.
Crucify him.
Yeah.
Let me tell you something right now. That movie changed my perception of action movies. It changed like I said, I seen that the first time I ever seen it was on TV. And then after, I got copies of it and I watched every iteration of it, and deleted scenes, extended scenes. I've owned so many copies of Conan the Barbarian, and that movie has perpetually changed my life because of that. It made me become big. It made me become. I'm 6'5", 300 pounds. But the thing is I've I started working out and training because of that movie, because of the hardship. And as I got older, that movie became more of not an action movie, but more of a love story between the passion of his life and what he's trying to live, and then finding love, and then love being taken from him. And then when that love was taken from him, then it's about vengeance. And when it became about vengeance, the 100% like, no, we're going to go save the woman. And then we're going to get, it's like, okay, but that's not what we're doing. I'm going to come in here. And False of Doom evolved to me after years and years of watching it, because you can see this person just working his magic, doing his craft, and like just the elegance and prestige that he presumed over everybody. And it just so drawed me more into him, because he almost looked like this creature that didn't belong in the world.
It's the contacts. He's wearing purple contacts as well. So he looks like he is not, of a race that exists these days. He is this otherworldly thing. And like you said, he's all cult of personality. It's like you can see why people might follow this very charismatic man. That's another film. Sven Ole Thorsen, Arnie's old friend, he's there playing Thorgrim, the model to James Earl Jones's cerebral leader. The stories that apparently, just them partying around Spain. That film.
Exactly.
It got R-rated.
Oh yeah, easily. You know what I'm saying? I'm pretty sure it'd have been NC-17 if they didn't cut a lot of the shit they had out. You know what I'm saying? Just reading for some of the just the behind the scenes, when they painted themselves, they didn't realize they were going to get stuck in that paint forever. You know what I'm saying? And then what's her the leading lady, when she got her finger chopped off by the sword, that was an unforeseen event. But it's just like, oh, those are the things you watch. Like, this is why I love this movie. It's gritty. It's in your face, and it's like there's no holding back, and that's what I love so much about it.
Absolutely. I mean, the sequel's not as good, but Sarah Douglas and Grace Jones, they elevate the material that they're given.
Oh yeah, no, I like I said, I'm a fan of both movies, but the first one does stand above them all. And then Red Sonja actually is is right there with me too, because Red Sonja, it was so campy, but it's just because to me it all ties together. You know what I'm saying? I don't know why I do know why, because the way Marvel sets it up, but they should have definitely left Conan be Conan in that Red Sonja, and then it tied together even more like that. Yeah, but that, and even Ernie Reyes Jr. in it. Well, I was like, yep, all right, I'm definitely in.
Absolutely. And actually, in my new book, I interviewed Ralph Moeller, the German actor who's been Arnie's long friend, and he played Conan in the TV series.
Oh yeah.
And he shared some photos of me when Arnie came to visit him on set. So Ralph as Conan stood next to Arnie, who's like going, I'd hold the sword like this, and
it's hilarious. I was literally just rewatching the series right now.
All right, awesome.
Yeah. Oh yeah. And that's one of those. He's one of those characters that always played bad guys in movies, and man, he always had that low brow stare where it just made you feel fear, like, oh shit, it's about to get crazy. And he's a big dude too.
He's still big. I mean, if you follow him on Instagram, he's a beast. And if you've seen him in films like Best of the Best 2 or Pathfinder or Gladiator, he's been perpetually a unit.
Oh yeah, no, he's definitely getting it. You know what I'm saying? Best of the Best is one of my favorite favorite movies. I think he was in Best of the Best 3.
I think it was 2 where he
Was it
plays.
2?
Is it Harry Newton's Gladiator?
Yeah.
That's I think it's the second one where Sean Penn. Chris Penn. Is it Chris Penn?
Yeah, Chris Penn.
And
Sean
dies
Penn's brother.
10, 15 minutes. Yeah, I think it's the second one.
Okay, yeah, I always get those mixed because like Best of the Best 3 had a huge movie release. I never understood why, but those are just some of the movies I love watching. You know what I'm saying? And just like you said, like when you have a villain that can just dominate just overtake the scene, and it's their job. You know, I don't know if you watch professional wrestling, but you have baby faces and you have heels. Heels have to make the baby face look good, but at the same time they have to get what they call heat, and heat is the hatred for you. And then once you get that hatred, then you literally want the other person to win regardless. You know what I'm saying? And when an actor can portray a villain like that, and he's like, oh my God, I can't wait for this guy to die, that's when you know this movie's about to be fire.
Yeah, I totally agree.
Oh yeah. While doing this book, who is the most interesting person you actually interviewed and talked to, discuss with this book? With the first one.
The first one, I think it was probably Al Leon. So Al Leon is a stunt coordinator who's literally worked with everyone in Hollywood. You know, he's in Die Hard, he's in Lethal Weapon. He fought Brandon Lee in Rapid Fire. He's got a good working relationship with John Carpenter. You know, he's been a stunt coordinator, he's been a stunt man, and he just had stories about everyone. And tragically, about, I want to say 9 years ago, he suffered a stroke and he's paralyzed kind of down the left-hand side of his body. But he's still so talkative and just has all these great stories. He'll sometimes, his memory's not what it used to be, but once he kind of remembers, he's like, let me just tell you what it was like, you know, fighting Brandon Lee and hanging out with Brandon. And he's also one of those actors, because he's been around so long, he does not care who he shit talks. And that's a great thing about interviewing so many of these actors, because they're not A-listers and they don't have their publicist next to them. They're like, oh, working with so-and-so was great, but let me tell you who was a complete dick. It was
that's the kind of interview I like to have. I was like, who fucking is not the best person to work with? You know what I'm saying? Give me the juice.
I can tell you that, Liz. It's going to be between you, me, and your listeners, but I will keep a secret. But if they get the book, it will go into a little bit more detail about how this actor was a bell end. But everyone who has worked with him does not have positive things to say about Steven Seagal.
Hey, that is, I think that's not even a secret. I think
that's not even a shock to anyone, but he does not come off well in the book. Basically, everyone's kind of got a Steven Seagal story.
Oh, I believe it. You know, I like I said, I'm a huge Steven Seagal fan. I still watch his movies these days. I own the majority of them. I have a lot of them on DVD and digital. But you know what I love? I love a train wreck. And I watch all the new ones that come out because I'm like, all right.
How can you do that to yourself? It's like watching Bruce Willis's directed video where he's in the area for like 2 days and phones it in. I think there's only one Steven Seagal film that I really like, and that's the only one he directed, On Deadly Ground. And that's because Michael Caine is just there yelling nonsense. Steven Seagal has gone full Steven Seagal, and it's just like an unfiltered ego session.
It is definitely is, because he comes in and you know what's always funny is, like, you know, he's big spiritual, and yet he's like, you know, I'm from I'm coming from the East with all this knowledge, but then I'm coming back here, and then all of a sudden he's Native American, and I'm like, I don't understand it, but okay.
I mean, God, yeah. I mean, I wouldn't trust a thing that man said, but yeah.
But like I said, I just like to watch him because it's just like, he still got it almost.
I mean, sure. I mean, to me, he was the one action star where I was like, I don't get it. He's not charming. He can't do humor. He's not self-deprecating in the way people like Arnie are. He took himself so seriously.
No emotion.
And yeah, he barely moved. It was just people running at him and then falling over. I was just kind of like, is it the ponytail? Is it the fact he's married to Kelly LeBrock? What is it? What do people like this guy? I mean, Under Siege has its moments, but really it's because of Gary Busey.
Oh, yeah. Gary Busey, Tommy Lee Jones. Right off top. That last fight scene was worth the whole movie right off top. You know what I'm saying? That knife scene was, yeah, exactly. I'm like, that's exactly what I want. You know what I'm saying? The way I describe action movies is, I know it's not real. I know I go with 100% a clean slate on every action movie, because the way I want to see it is what it is. It's I know bullets are never going to run out. I know there's going to be blood everywhere. Everyone's going to be shot, and the hero's going to live. I already know the whole storyline, but it's like, how impossible are they going to make it feel? And I'm like, yes.
Yeah.
It is, like I said, I'm trying to pull out of my wheelhouse here of action movies that I just recently watched. Have you seen any of the anything new from the 2000s that draw your eye to villains?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's weird. People do have this nostalgia for 80s action films, and I totally get it because I grew up with them.
Yeah.
But the action films that I'm really impressed by are, you know, the stuff Gareth Evans did with The Raid and The Raid 2.
Yeah.
Scott Adkins, his Undisputed films, especially Undisputed 2, where he's boyfriending Michael Jai White. Directors like David Leitch and Chad Stahelski, all those kind of 87, 11, they started off as stuntmen, then stunt coordinators, and are now A-list directors.
Yep.
You guys know how to shoot a film and get in quality actors, and also actors that can do action. So when you kind of see that John Wick 4 is going to have, you know, Hiroyuki Sadana, who's, you know, a Japanese actor who's done so much, and Scott Adkins and Donnie Yen's going to be in there as well. You're like, just lock that camera and let these people do what they do.
Yep.
You know, you hear people go, they don't make fights like films like Kickboxer anymore. And you're like, I mean, Kickboxer's fine, but you can't look at the action in a film like The Raid and go, Kickboxer's better. Action has evolved. It's so much more kinetic. And I like Jean-Claude Van Damme, but the fight scenes in something like, I don't know, Flashpoint with Donnie Yen, and by all accounts, his film Raging Fire is amazing. But, you know, action stars like Iko Uwe and Andrew Koji, who is in that TV series Warrior that's produced by Shannon Lee, Bruce Lee's daughter, and Donnie Yen and Scott Adkins, you know, these are not just all-out action stars. They are amazing martial artists. And I love it when they kind of grab these actors and they put them into a big franchise, like the Fast and Furious franchise, where showed up. Didn't do as much as I would have liked to have seen, but, you know, at least they're exposing them to a wider audience. And in countries like America, where people like Donnie Yen do have a small but dedicated following, hopefully something like John Wick 4 will open them up to a whole, you know, world of people. Well, actually, you know, Rogue One would have done that. What am I talking about? He's already been in the Star Wars. Can't get big at Star Wars. And but yeah, it's getting all these great action stars like Scott Adkins, and hopefully, you know, being in these films like John Wick will get them into more and more stuff.
Yeah. See, and you know, talking about The Raid, I remember waiting for that movie to come out. I was like, I'm a big kung fu. I love it, but the thing is I love like I said, the late 90s kung fu, when they started hitting so hard on the nail and the point. And then as 2000 started, it kind of drifted off a little bit. But just like you said, Donnie Yen and all these guys, when The Raid hit, I literally couldn't go to the theaters to see it because I couldn't remember why. But as soon as I could, I got a copy of it and I watched it. And I was like, this is a fighting movie. This, and like I said, and the villain, even in the villain in that, wasn't like this stupendous villain, but it was just like, yes, this is what it needs. This is gang life here. This is floors and levels of winning. And then just the movement, the camera action in kung fu movies is something that now is perfected because they can literally travel with the scene, because before it used to be one still shot and then it'd be one still shot. It's like, no, they're flowing with it. And so you feel the transition of all these angles that they're getting now. And you can get, it's almost like you're in the fight without being there. You know what I'm saying? So you're getting the emotions, the jerking, you're like, oh, and that's what I love about a lot of these Kung Fu movies. And like when District 13 came out, and then they, you know, redid it with Paul Walker.
Yeah.
And Brick Mansions. That's exactly what they called it. I prefer the first one because that guy was legit parkouring, moving with Kung Fu. That was a better movie. But when Brick Mansions came out, the only reason I even watched that is because the RZA was the villain in that movie. The RZA was the person who was like, he was flamboyant, he was straight up, he was like, nope, this is my shit, I run this bitch. And that was the only reason I prefer Brick Mansions just a little bit more than the first one.
Well, I mean, District 13, that had one of David Bell, who was one of the founders of parkour, and I think he's been a stuntman.
Oh yeah,
in film.
So many films. You can tell it's him too in the films that he does.
Yeah, did the sequel to District 13 come out in America? Because there was a sequel called District 13 Ultimatum.
Yeah, only on it literally flew under the table. Yeah. You know what I'm saying? So, and that one was a good one too, because the guy that was with him really like kept up. You know what I'm saying?
Yes, Cyril.
And he's a that guy, he knows he's good Kung Fu right there. That
Jason Statham. I think he crops up in like the fourth Die Hard.
Yeah.
But yeah, talking about what you were saying about the Raid, the bad guy in that, Yaya Ruhan, who plays Dog and was also in John Wick 3. Yeah. He actually trains the Indonesian Special Forces.
Oh yeah.
So it's like he's not just, I think he's like about 5'5". He's tiny, but he's just small and fucking lethal. So yeah.
Oh yeah, no, me too. Like I said, when you reached out to me, you know, I was like I said, this is what I love. I love action movies, and I love the way that they make me feel. And that's one of those things. Is I want to ask you, when you watch these movies and you see a villain, what was the transition from the hero to villain to you?
How do you mean? What
like you know, like you? I love watching action movies, but when was it the point that I'm focused? Because when we all start off watching action movies, we're focused on the hero. And then when did the transition happen? We're like, nope, the villain is who is leading this movie. Oh,
I mean, apart from Die Hard, I do remember as a kid watching Commando for the first time and seeing Vernon Wells as Bennett. What the fuck is this? And he was so crazy. He was so out there that you were kind of constantly waiting for the next scene with Bennett, because you're like, that guy is fucking crazy. I don't know what his deal is. Is he in love with Arnie? If so, that's something I haven't seen before, and I'm all on board for that. It's like, what's with the chainmail vest? What's with the porn star mustache? Why does he look slightly out of shape? And when I met Vernon Wells and I interviewed him for my book and also the documentary In Search of the Last Action Heroes, I got to like just ask him all these questions. And it was like, there was another actor who was cast as Bennett in Commando, and he was fired like in filming, because apparently Arnie felt that he wasn't physically intimidating enough. And after he had appeared in Mad Max 2, Vernon Wells' name was doing the rounds in Hollywood. So they called him out, but he hadn't been working out. So he had a little bit of a paunch, and he wasn't in shape, and all the costumes were meant for someone else. That's why it's all a little bit tight.
But it worked out.
So he's like, I tried to work out as much as I could in like 3 days before they started filming. But it's like, you know, it wasn't me originally. This was all someone else's costume, and it was all designed for someone else. So that's why everything is a little bit tight around certain areas.
Hey, now, like I said, I'm going to go a little off on Commando. Watching that movie, we had to get when I was a certain age, my mom would never let me watch certain things once she realized what I like to watch. And so Commando was one of those ones. And so me and my friends would get tapes, and someone would record it, and then we would watch it. And so when Commando came out, before it even hit home, before you could watch it on cable, we were watching it. And let me tell you something right now. That movie is what set my pace on like believability. You know what I'm saying? When Arnold was carrying a log on his shoulder like it wasn't nothing, holding the guy by his ankle, swinging from side to side. I'm like, no, picked up a phone booth. All right. Picked up a phone booth. All right. And so then I'm like, this is taking me into that trail of like, all right, I like this outrageous shit. You know what I'm saying?
It's like when people complain about the Fast and the Furious films being not realistic and like physics doesn't apply. It's like, look, if you don't have a problem with Commando and you're ranting about the Fast and Furious films, you need to kind of, you know, these films are on a certain level that you've got to enjoy them.
Exactly.
Arnie's guns will never run out of bullets, and Vin Diesel can somehow survive a 60-foot fall.
You know what I'm
saying?
Cliff. Off a cliff.
You just go with it. If you can't go with it, just missing out on a certain level of fun.
And that's my biggest gripe with people nowadays. I was like, look, you have to let go of reality. Please understand, we are watching a movie, and you know this is what's gonna happen.
Yeah, this is a film series that started off with them boosting DVD and VHS combos, and now they're saving the world from thermonuclear war. You're not on board with that. And if you are complaining about how this series should still be about drag racing, I can't help you. You either go with it or you I can't.
Oh my God. All right. Have you seen the new Suicide Squad?
I have. Yes, I did. I went to go see it with my wife the other week. Nice.
I watched it here at the house. I have this beautiful home, theater set up at the house. And that movie, all right. And I've watched Marvel movies and DC movies from the beginning when they were hokey as shit to what they are now. All right. And so I'm only going to compare Suicide Squad to the first Suicide Squad.
Sure.
And my whole perception is this one should only exist. The other one should have just been redone or taken away because it was completely washed out, because this is the true identity of what the Suicide Squad was. I'm a big comic fan. Like I said, I've read stacks and stacks of comics, and this movie right here is the new level that DC needs to hit every time to be able to compete with Marvel. And all right, and just the list of and I like I said, I'm a big John Cena fan too. So let's get that straight out the point. I'm a huge John Cena. I'm a fanboy. I will 100% say it that he was my favorite part of this movie besides the rap. And spoiler alert for anybody.
I because I'm not a big wrestling fan, I only got into John Cena when I saw him in Trainwreck. The what's the name? Andy Schumer.
Yeah, or Amy Schumer.
And he was so funny in that because I hadn't really seen him in anything. The Marine and 12 Rounds, I hadn't watched them because I was like, oh, here's this big lughead. He looks like he's just taking himself too seriously.
Yeah.
And I saw him in Trainwreck and I was like, this guy is fucking hilarious. And like I said, he was hilarious in Suicide Squad. And now because I think he's following that Arnie. Well, I think he's funnier than Arnie.
Yeah.
He's kind of got that patted down, but and he's mixing it up as well as doing action films. He was doing stuff like Blockers, and he's just done a big Chinese film with Jackie Chan. I think he actually learned Mandarin for it.
He did.
So I was like, fuck me, John Cena is going places.
Yeah,
I mean, he's gone places. He's already probably on the A-list now. But yeah, you're right. He was probably one of the best things in it.
Yeah, like I said, it's just watching this movie. It was just like, he's playing a villain in this movie, but yet he's over the top, willing to say his parts, because he says a whole bunch of ridiculous ass shit, but he says it with such conviction it makes it funny. And like I said, I'm always watching out for the next action hero, and The Rock is already set himself. He is the main action hero in every movie, but John Cena is, just from this performance, is setting the title to the new action star coming up. You know what I'm saying? The Rock made the transition from wrestling. John Cena's making this transition. And the thing I love about it too is they're both muscular men, and it's bringing that muscular style back, because for a while there, we actually lost heroes as superhuman muscular men. You know what I'm saying? They're now just the basic average dude, which I do love, like John McClane, John Wick. You know what I'm saying? There are these, James Bond. There are these people now that have this physique where it's just like, I don't need that. You know what I'm saying? Highlander is also one of those other movies that doesn't get recognized as much of an action movie as it should. It's more sci-fi, but it is definitely action. And the villains in that but the thing is, Connor McLeod is not a huge dude, but yet he's fighting huge dudes and winning. You know what I'm saying? So it's just so crazy. You know what I'm saying? That we're starting to slowly get that transition back.
This was something I discussed with Scott Adkins in the documentary. And it was because there was that time you had Arnie Stallone. Mel Gibson was cut, but he was never, acting unit. Matthias Hues and Dolph Lundgren. And then as the 80s ended, and we discussed why this was, and we think it was kind of the influx of Hong Kong action films with people like Jackie Chan, Jet Li, and Brandon Lee. And your action heroes became a lot more lithe. You've got people like Christian Slater and Keanu Reeves, and they weren't big, jacked up guys. It was like Patrick Swayze in Roadhouse and Point Break.
Yeah.
They were kind of lean. They were
exactly
more lean rather than a bear.
Yeah, Richard Grieco, all those guys, man.
Yeah, and Scott was like, yeah, I was kind of trim and cut down for a lot of my stuff, and he credits The Rock with bringing back that really big look. And The Rock wasn't even that big until Pain and Gain. You look at it like the Scorpion King and the Rundown, and he's a big guy, but he's not, he's not
vascular. He's just round. You know what I'm saying?
And then Pain and Gain, he got jacked, and he hasn't lost that look since then. He's just, and then he got really big in that Hercules film and Furious films, and now it's kind of variations on a theme, and you've kind of got John Cena and Vin Diesel and all these other action stars have kind of got to rise to meet that. If you're going up against The Rock, you've got to look the part. But it's fascinating how it's circular. And I'm wondering, whenever The Rock's star diminishes somewhat, or if he's going to keep on going, whether there will be that lither action hero again. You kind of do get that in the Marvel films, Simu Liu kind of lithe for Shang-Chi and you've kind of got Tom Holland in the Spider-Man films. I mean, that kid's in shape.
Yeah,
but, he's not
muscular, or not muscular, but large. And
he's a tiny guy. He's like 5'8", but you know what I mean. He's fit. He does parkour all the time by all accounts. So the look of action stars, it's fascinating. It's a cyclical, ever-changing landscape, and it'll be interesting to see where it goes next.
Oh yeah, and that brings me to my point of what I wanted to say is with the muscular man coming back, with the larger than life, is it going to start bringing villains back up to par to where they have to have that because, like I said, with most movies now in the 2000s, not all the villains are over the top, not all the villains are like stealing the spotlight. It's all about the hero. And with a lot of Marvel movies coming out, they have to put these villains at a certain point where they're like so OP. But the thing is a lot on the outside of the action movies, we haven't really seen that. You know what I'm saying? We're not seeing as charismatic as they were back in the day, because now everyone's like almost on an even playing level. But when you start getting these muscular figures back, do you think you're going to start getting these people that have to really lean into the part to carry the movie?
I think you're going to get a mix like you did in the 80s. So just looking ahead to the Shang-Chi Marvel film that comes out next month, you've got Tony Leung, a well-established Hong Kong actor who's done, action films like Hard Boiled and Infernal Affairs, as well as, character dramas like In the Mood for Love. And then you've also got the muscular henchman in the form of Florian Big Nasty Munto, who played Ivan Drago's son in Creed 2. So you've kind of got that mix. You've got like a lean martial artist and a big fucking unit to be that intimidating villain. So I think it will be more like that going forward. You might have your British thespian bad guy and then a big henchman to provide that physical threat. We've had that in like Bond films since the 60s. You'll have your cat stroking mastermind, and then you'll have Robert Shaw ready to throw Sean Connery through a fucking train carrier. So I think it all depends on the hero. You've just got to have that counter. If it's something like Arnie, you might need that physical presence. But if it's someone like Bruce Willis, who can't just rely on his bulk, you might have that more intellectual threat with, surrounded by an army of henchmen.
Oh, yeah. All right, now I'm gonna bring up this character. This character, like a villain in almost every movie he plays, never speaks, maybe one or two words. And you know what I'm saying? I remember watching these movies with him in it, and his presence, to me, I always thought he was huge. Like every shot was always like an up shot. It was always like they're making this guy so larger than life as a villain, as the person who's there who can't be defeated, and as Bolo. All right, Bolo, he plays part, like I said, and he's a martial artist, physically fit power lifter, and yet barely speaks a word in any of his movies. And somehow he can carry it like that. Everybody's fucking scared of him.
I tried to interview Bolo Young for the first book. I tried again for the second. I couldn't get him. Basically, he wanted more money than I had for his own interview. And like you said, you don't see Bolo really saying much in this film. So I was kind of like, if I shell out this money, is he going to have any good anecdotes? I don't know how good his English is.
Yeah.
So I was like, I'm not going to do it. But yeah, you know, in stuff like Double Impact, and, you know, he's fought like Bruce Lee and Enter the Dragon, and he's got a son who is just as ripped as he was back in the day. There's a reason Bolo was called the Chinese Hercules. Yeah, he is, like you said, he's just all presence. And he was on like the shortlist when I started writing the books. Like, I've got to try and get Bolo Young. It couldn't be. And
it goes like that. You know what I'm saying? Sometimes people are just too bigger than what they think they are, and not willing to share any experiences. You know what I'm saying? It just is what it is.
I'm sure he thought he was completely justifying his fee. But for a writer who was writing his first book, I just make it happen. So.
Oh yeah. No, I respect it. I'll tell you, man. You know what I'm saying? I'm having a great conversation with you. I absolutely love it. And you know, it's not too often I get to talk action movies, because the majority of my friends and my wife will just leave the room once I pop in a movie. She's like, all right, do you? I'm gonna, you know, we'll figure something else out, because I'll plop down and get lost.
Lucky for me, my wife is actually quite into action films. She is a massive Stallone fan. She loves Stallone. She loves the Rocky films, and but she did do that. Actually, we were watching the last Rambo film, Rambo Last Blood. And it was so nihilistic, so dark.
Yeah.
I don't know if you've seen it, but there's this
bit, I've seen it.
Yeah, he's getting like, his face is like cut open by gangs.
Yeah.
And she was like, that's it, I'm out. I can't watch this. She was like, this is not why I come to a Rambo film. She was like, this is too much. This is just not nice. And she was like, I'm just going to go upstairs. And I watched the end of the film, but I was like watching it going, this is, you know, I felt dirty watching it.
Well, you know, it's meant to feel dirty, because like if you watch the progression of all these movies, you know what I'm saying, from when Rambo started to right now, it just progressively had to get to that level, because that's what draws the people in.
But at the end of 4, you know, after he's wiped out the Burmese army, apparently, he goes home, and you're like, oh, we've come full circle. He's gone home. He's in his army fatigues. He'll go make his life. And at the end of Rambo 5, he's just, I think everyone he knows is now dead, and he's just sat on the porch. He might die, and you're like, well, that was awful for everyone. You know, at least in, you know, your nihilistic Taken films, he does save his daughter, but the girl he goes to Mexico to save dies anyway. And you're like,
spoiler alert. No.
sorry.
I know, it's all right.
Last Blood. But you know, it's really a film that can be spoiled. But yeah, I don't know. I don't know what I really wanted from it, but I just know that it wasn't that level of despair. The action was awesome, you know.
Yeah. I needed a happy ending. A happy ending, or not, or an open ending. You know what I mean?
But I just kind of felt like, whew, yeah. I don't know.
It goes like that, because like I said, a lot of these movies now have to compete with so much of, like, you know, Saw and all these like crazy horror movies that are so gory. And so it's almost like it's expected because we're all so desensitized from, all the stuff that we're, shown all day long, what I'm saying? All the violence on the news, TV, all that stuff. It 100% desensitizes to be able to grab people now. You almost have to like, bam, shock them in the face to grab their attention. You know what I'm saying? At least at that moment in time when Rambo came out, it was like that. You know what I'm saying? There wasn't, like all the like PG movies. I would say everything was like a hard R on almost every action movie that came out.
Yeah. I do remember when I spoke to Mark Lester, the director of Commando, and he said he remembered a conversation, or he heard about a conversation between Arnie and Stallone. And I think it was like Stallone had Rambo 2 out,
yeah,
and Arnie had Commando out. And Stallone was kind of like, I'm gonna paste you at the box office. Paste you, I'm gonna crush Commando. And Arnie was kind of like, yeah, you probably will, but I think in the long run, Commando will have better legs because of the humor element.
Yeah.
I think that's kind of right. Rambo is definitely a product of its time. It's like peak Reaganism. It's kind of, this is payback for America's perceived failures in Vietnam. Whereas Commando is much more of a, I'm just going to gun down an entire army, one-liners, one-liners. And you can watch it more with a kind of, a fun atmosphere. So yeah, I think if you do have that level of violence, you do need to offset it with those kind of Arnie zingers sometimes.
Well, he does have that way with those one-liners. You know what I'm saying? Sylvester Stallone is so stoic in most of his movies where he doesn't need to speak. His emotions are really seen through his eyes. But Arnie, he can just like that cigar and then drop it on him. You know what I'm saying? I lied, and then dropped him right off in his head. You know what I'm saying?
I think that's why the Stallone action films I like are the I really like. Rocky is its own thing where he's vulnerable, he's heartfelt, you love him. But the Arnie, the Stallone action films are the ones where he's doing the zingers, your cliffhangers, your Demolition Mans, your Tango and Cashes. Yeah. Where he's bouncing off Kurt Russell. Yeah, I think those are the ones that are kind of, you go to those more often than you would a Rambo 3.
Yeah. I'm going to drop a Stallone movie, and I was a big fan of it. Everyone seemed to not be, but Stop or My Mom Will Shoot was just over the top hilarious to me. I could not get enough of his mom because like, what are you supposed to do? You know what I'm saying? And the rumor is Arnold tricked him into taking that movie because I think they offered it to him and he was like, no, give it to Stallone. Just tell him you're going to offer it to me. And then he took it.
I mean, it's not a great film, but my wife is having a bit of a Golden Girls rewatch at the moment. And I'll come in every now and then during an episode. Estelle Getty, man, fucking hilarious woman.
Hilarious.
She could nail a joke or a punchline, like it's Arnie shooting a gun. She, boom, nails every scene. So, I mean, maybe there was part of it going, hey, with Estelle Getty here, how can we fail? But yes, it's not a good film.
It's not a great one, but I always felt it was funny. Oh yeah, now there's so many action movies we can sit there and just break down. And I absolutely love it. What I'm saying, like I said, I have a spot in my heart where I can literally melt in my couch and have a whole Saturday, Sunday of what do I want to remember? You know what I'm saying? Because every time I watch an action movie, it just takes me back to a moment in time in my life where I'm just in the front of my TV with a bowl of cereal, no one bothering me, and just exploding. You know what I'm saying?
Well, I'm glad you enjoyed the documentary, which I think is actually on Amazon Prime.
So that's exactly where I watched it. It was like I rented it, watched it, and as soon as I was done watching it, me and my brother were literally, because my brother and I watched it together. We instantly turned around and watched Last Action Hero.
Oh yeah,
because that is as bad as everyone will say. Rewatching it, because I remember watching it in the theaters. I'm like, yeah, it's a good movie, and then. After all this time from when it came out to now, and I rewatched it, I'm like, you know what? That's way better than I thought it was.
It definitely has its moments. And for the documentary, we interviewed Zach Penn, who wrote the original draft.
Yeah.
And, he was like, it was so weird. We wrote a script making fun of the 80s action film things. And then our script's getting rewritten by Shane Black, who's written lots of those 80s films, and it's getting directed by John McTiernan, so it's like the snake eating itself. It's like a weird experience. So
yeah, that was, like I said, as soon as I watched it, it made me instantly turn around and be like, no, we're going to rewatch this right now.
Yeah.
And had a good time watching it.
Al Leong is killed by a flying ice cream cone. So
yeah, come on. What did Arnold say? He was like,
iced him.
Iced him. Yeah, it was iced him. And that's one thing I loved about it too, because it pulled in all these thugs into the movie to be killed from all these old action movies, and it was just like, oh my god, like you know, gratuitous violence is what I love, and action movies give it to me.
Absolutely. Well, I mean, yeah, I'm glad you liked the documentary, because me and the director Oliver Harper wanted to tell a story about, you know, how action films, you know, changed for the 50s, 60s, and 70s, the explosion of the action film in the 80s, and then it's kind of, some people might say decline, I say evolution into 90s and today. So yeah, if you're a big fan of 80s action films, check out In Search of the Last Action Heroes wherever you rent films, and I hope you enjoy
or
it.
stream.
Of course. That's it. Like you're going to Blockbuster these days.
Yeah. Oh my god, I wish we had. There's only one left, and it's there in Oregon. It's like, it's literally a state over, but it's like maybe a 13-hour drive from me. You know, before we get out of here, let everybody know where they can find you, and you know, and what, you know, plug your social medias, plug all that stuff, and you know, I'll put it all in the notes.
So I'm on Twitter and Instagram at Timon Singh. If you're on Facebook, you can find more information about the book at Born to Be Bad book. You can buy Born to Be Bad in paperback, hardback, or on Kindle from your favorite tax dodging global empire, or you know what, order it through your local bookstore. Help out your local business, get it in through your local bookstore. But yeah, you can find out information on the website www.borntobebad.co.uk. And yeah, I hope you enjoy it.
Oh yeah.
If it helps, I'm going to say the foreword for the first book was written by Stephen E. D'Souza, who wrote Die Hard, The Running Man, and Commando. And for the second book, I got Graham Yost, who wrote Speed and Broken Arrow and Hard Rain, to write the foreword. So if anything, I got two legendary action screenwriters to pimp my book a bit. So,
that's badass.
Yeah.
Well, I'm the Angry Motherfucking Dad. Thank you guys for watching. And guess the fuck what? You want to find me at Instagram, Twitter, Snapchat, Tumblr, Facebook, everywhere. You want to watch this? IGTV, YouTube. You want to listen to it? Spreaker, SoundCloud, Stitcher, Spotify, Google Play, Apple Podcasts, Podbean, SoundCloud, Deezer, iHeartRadio. This motherfucker's everywhere. You can easily fucking find it. Rate, review, like, subscribe, all that bullshit. It really helps me to fuck out. Also, too, I'm also part of the SIT Network. That's a slightly irregular podcast network, group of powerful podcasters out there sharing their shit. That is sitnet.us. Network SIP at Twitter, SIT Network on Instagram. Make sure you go check it the fuck out. It really helps us out. You can find all our podcasts, all our websites, all our platforms right there at sipnet.us. And I'll see y'all motherfuckers on the next one. Fuck.
Never die. Always living. Always living. Always living. Always living. Always living. Always living.